Hello everybody and welcome to another detail painting video with Krita. In this case I have prepared a different kind of video. I'm going to show you just the basic of one of the best brush engines that Krita has, the spray brush engine. Thanks a lot for being here, and I hope this kind of different video like you allows me to produce faster. So let's go with the content, because we are producers, artists. We need time for more interesting stuff than being watching Raymond talking. Okay, so here we go with the basics. First, we need to create a new file. So go to new file and select custom DNA4 preset. I think is good enough to show the features, the landscape orientation. So I'm creating the file and I have this. Where are the brush engines in Krita? So the brush engines are located here, because if you start to play with the brushes, you don't know which brush engine is using each brush. You can know it by going here to the brush editor. I'll look at here. Okay, so you can see the name, the brush name, but you can see also the brush engine that is already using. This is, for example, using the bristle engine. This is not a pixel brush engine. Okay, this is using the pixel engine. How can I filter all these results? Because how many brush engines has Krita? Okay, I can do that if I go here. Usually this is hidden, but I can press on this arrow here and then I can see all the brushes here. And you can see I can filter by tags, I can filter by detail, by texture, or wherever. And of course, look at this. I have the engine available for pixel, for sketch, or wherever the brush engine I want to explore. Okay, if I go to the spray, you can see, oh my god, this is the spoiler spoiler alert. This is the brushes that we will be exploring in this video. I have been produced 14 brushes, so you are gonna be I think is good enough to show the features of the spray brush engine. But you can see that we already have some brushes that are using the spray brush engine, which is cool. Okay, so you can see, for example, the hertz. If I just make maybe I'm using white, yeah, Ramon. Okay, I have this. Okay. If you keep press, you see the hertz are flowing, and that means that we are using the spray feature in the spray engine. We will cover this a bit later. But what if we want to explore by default the brush engine? Which is the default state of this brush engine? I have to go here to the plus icon and just press and go for the spray. And this is the default spray brush engine that we are going to cover right now. By default, you have this result. And if you increase the size, let me zoom in a bit, you see something like this. If I keep just making this kind of brush stroke, I can feel the space I want to fill, but obviously this is a bit slower than expected. And if I keep press, remember the hertz when they were flowing? This is not flowing because we have the Airbrush feature deactivated, and this is in this state for one simple reason, I think, because if you start to play without knowing too much about this brush engine, you can create too much density of dots on your screen that can make your CPU slower. So to prevent this situation, this feature I think is deactivated. And to show you better the behavior, I'm going to remove everything. All the dynamics are removed, deactivated, and we see the basic. So we see the spray, and you notice one thing. Let me increase a bit the amount of particles that we can control here. Okay, so I'm going to increase the particles to 15, and I have 50 particles. Okay, 50 particles, 50, 50. If I reduce the size of the brush, I get the same amount of particles, but in a smaller area. And this is not really good when you are painting, because you're working in different sizes and you get different density. So for shading objects, this is not good enough, but for other purposes can work very well. Right now we are learning the basics, so just be patient, please. Okay, so now we understand how to use the diameter, because it works different than the size. If we increase the size here, we are not increasing the particle dot size. We have control over the area we are affecting. We can affect a bigger area, but if we have the count system for adding the spray shapes, we have this kind of effect. What happens if I increase the amount of particles and just decrease the value of aspect ratio? We're going to see this. Okay, now we have stretched the brush to create this effect. So we have all the particles but stretched in a more narrower area, and we have this feature or this parameter to be adjusted in this way or adjusted in this way, which is another kind of ratio distortion. If I start to move things here and play a lot with the parameters and then press here this button to restore the default state, I get nothing. Restore the default state, I have to go here and select again the spray feature. But remember, we are going to erase all the modifications in the spray brush engine. If I haven't saved the brush, I lost all my modifications. If I want to spread the particles in a bigger area, I have to modify the size, which is affecting the spray area, not the particle size, not the spray shape size. How we do modify the particle shape, the spray shape? As you can see here, I control the shape of the spray particles here by ellipse, rectangle, anti-alias, pixel, pixel, and image. There is a lot of possible combinations. And as you can see here, if I lock here, I can create bigger particles. But remember, I am covering the same amount of space, the same area. So bigger particles with the same area. So size doesn't affect the size of the particles. This is really, really important. We are controlling the area that we want to affect. So if I unlock this, I can get this kind of crazy results, just crazy things, to create this kind of effect really fast. To create floor, water. Remember, we have a water brush here, but you can use the spray to not only spray perfect rounded particles. And how we control this? If we don't want the perfect shapes like this, because we can just also get rectangles and create this kind of effects more detailedly, and we can add color variation to this that we will cover in a minute, so please be patient or start playing right now with the brushes, because you can download and you have the link in the description below. We can activate this feature, which is called proportional. By default, it uses the percentage. And what that means, if I use the ellipse, something like this, and I use proportional, I have the size of the particle and increase the size, I am increasing also the particle size. If I reduce the spray area, I reduce also the size of the particles. I think this is really cool. It's a really cool feature. But what happens if I want to control the shape on the edges of this circle element? So we have this and we want to modify the edges, but look at this. We have different sizes and this is controlled by the shape dynamics, so we don't want to affect them in any way. Disable this dynamics as I did before. Okay, so I have this, and now I'm going to show you a way to get different results with another way to modify the spray shapes. So we were in this stage, we have basic solid particles, and we want to see how can we modify the shape of the particle. Well, we can use this. We have been exploring, we can create perfect rounded or perfect rectangle, and we can use these options. Are not going to be covered in this video right now. So we disable this, we automatically see that we are using another kind of particles. The particles I'm using right now are the auto or predefined or text. Yes, believe me, we can use text. So for example, I'm here, so I'm controlling the shape of the particle like I do when I'm creating regular brushes. So if I go here and select, for example, this soft curve, I can modify the shape of this particle. So look at this, we're going to the stream. Now we are creating this kind of particle, but of course we can go just simple version and then go from this, which is what we had before, to this, which is softer particle. If we want a softer particle than this, we go here and just remove these points and just use something similar to this. Also, you can use here the ratio to make this kind of effect, increasing, decreasing, or changing the angle, and we get something similar to this. In this spray brush engine, I can control the area of this, but we can complicate this a bit more if we randomize the size, but not this size, but the size here. So you can see here, it's the random just a bit. And then we have something like this. Pretty similar that we have in the brushes I created for you. Another thing that we can do with this kind of spray brush engine behavior, we can go here and go to the brush tip, because we are not using the spray shape, we are using the brush tip, but we are going to use the predefined brushes, the brush tips that we have already available for creating our brushes. So for example, let me select this, and then I see nothing, because by default the brush tends to be smaller to avoid confusion. But if I increase the size of the brush tip, I am increasing the size of the particle. Okay, so you can see here we have something like this, which is interesting. But let me show you what can we do with this kind of thing. And now you see that we have this kind of clouds, but the particle itself is too small. So I increase the size of the particle, not too much, Raymond, and I create something like this. And you can see how this is condensing the opacity of the shape. And this is used in some of the brushes that I've done for this video. So if you like the idea, just go here and start to play, for example, with this brush, which is very useful to create some kind of smoke or kind of density and color heatering, and you have something like this, very easy, pretty fast. And if you increase the size, you get more spread particles, so you can create just clouds with brighter colors. You can create stuff like this in seconds. I think it's pretty cool to have something like this. And one of the most important things that we have already available are the color dynamics. I'm going to reset the brush engine, so let's reset. But how can I control the dynamics here? I can control the dynamics, everything related with the shape dynamics here. If I want to control the size, the rotation, and this kind of things are here. But the color has its own category here, so I can use this. So let me show you in a couple of seconds. Not too much visible because the color is too dark. If I go here, then I see the difference. So as you can see here, the first stamp is purple, next one is pink. So the color in the particles are randomized in a very logical behavior. But imagine I want to have particles with different colors. If I use this, the color per particle, I go here and you see this. Can you see the difference? You can see blue, pink, purple in the spray area, in the first stamp area. So the next one will be different because we have a lot of different random behavior. So if I increase the size, I have full control over my particles because I can control also the saturation, I can control the value by randomize this kind of things. Be careful with that because it's different than the pixel brush engine where the color dynamics are a bit more evolved. But this is very fast. Usually we don't want to create crazy variations in color. Okay, so now we have something like this, but as you can see, if I keep press, I get nothing like spray. So I have to activate this feature, the Airbrush feature. The Airbrush feature controls how particles are sprayed in time. So if I increase the rate, I have something like this. If I increase the rate a lot, I get a lot of particles. Really fun. It's crazy because you can create even noise for texture. So we have something like this. It's pretty similar, like confetti. If we have this kind of brush, we can start to notice that we have this line when we want to say something. How we avoid this kind of line? Well, we have here this parameter called Jitter movement. And what is Jitter? Jitter is exactly this. And if I jitter my particles, I'm spreading them so I don't get this line. But the area is bigger than expected. So if I want to cover in specific area size, maybe it's a good idea to use selections. For example, if I want to cover this area, I can use a selection and then start to spray the particles to make sure I have control over the surface or the area I want to cover. Finish this sphere, something like this with color power, and we have dynamics power, and that's exactly what I have done in the brushes I have produced for you. So what do you think about these particles? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if this video is helping you or giving ideas to create interesting effects in your paintings. Now let me show you the final thing about dynamics. For example, here you can see if I have square and not soft, the fold, and just a bit like this, and the angle 90 degrees, and remove the spray shape to use the brush tip. So I have this. So let me show you the last thing I want to show you in this video. It's not exactly this, but obviously this kind of behavior, it could be really cool to make a fast backgrounds, a lot of particles combined to create interesting color effects. It's not exactly this, but it's how to control the rotation of these shapes. Well, we can use the shape dynamics and the angle weight. So if I increase this to 1, let me just deactivate the airbrush, the brush tip, bit smaller, something like this, and you can see, but the ratio more dramatic to see the effect. So I have these lines, but I want that lines follow this path, the brush stroke path. So I have something like this. It's a bit crazy, so we have to just check what we have here in the shape dynamics, angle weight, random size, because we are jittering, I think. Okay, let me reduce the space and you get something like this. If I jitter, in this case, I am going to make some chaos inside my brush stroke. This could be good for another purposes, but not in this case, because I want to control my brush stroke with this kind of lines. And remember, I can rotate the brush tip so I can get something like this. Ratio is really related with angle direction, so I can create stuff like this. And you can see how if I increase the size, I have apparently less particles. So I am focusing the particles in this area. I want to have the same amount. So in this case, I use not the count, but the density. And if I go crazy and I start to play a lot with the density, I'm going to remove the jitter. I get something like this. If I increase the size, then I realize that I am spreading much more particles, so I can block my CPU if I go crazy and start to create something like this, and also activating the airbrush feature. Look at this. So my CPU is now computing a lot of spraying particles, and this is what I want to explain, because I want you avoid this behavior. Don't think Krita is getting crazy. It's only that you have to modify the parameters called Airbrush that is related also with the density. Okay, I go here, Airbrush. Obviously this is too much Airbrush, but if I reduce this, I get the same amount visually, at least the same spray effect. If I keep press, you see the randomize effect in the angle direction, but this CPU works fine. Not too complicated to feel bigger areas. Okay, when I want to cover big areas like this, then maybe it's a good time to disable the airbrush or increase the spacing of the stamps inside the brushstroke and get something like this, so you can cover areas faster but not so pleasant visually. There is one last thing that I want to show you, and it's particularly interesting because it brings you all the power of creating brushes with your own resources. Because when we are playing with this kind of spray engine and we start to create the brushes, we get interesting shapes that we can convert in brush tips. By default, imagine you are creating this shape and you want to create the brush from here. Just remove this and then go to selection, make a selection of this and go here to the brush tip and then a stamp. Give it a name, auto knot, because we want spreading this just around the size. The color is going to be from the color wheel, so put this activated, and this brush style is regular because it's not an animated brush, but of course we can create it animated brush. If you want more info about how to create your own brushes with this spray brush engine technique, let me know in the comments. Click on accept and you have this. If I go here to my brush tip, I get something similar to this. Let me show you how to use it. The basic brush like this is a random brush. I'm going to use my Predefined and I'm going to activate the rotation. In the fuse depth, remove pressure, and it gets something like this. As simple as this to create your own brush tips and use it as simple grain. But of course, if I increase the size, I get this. So these brushes are better used when we don't modify the scale of the particles during the painting stage in our artworks. So that's all. That's the last tip for this video. It takes time to get into all the parameters that you can modify with the spray brush engine, but I think with this video you get the basics to create your own brushes or even improve the brushes I have created for you. If you have ideas or you want to suggest something for the next video, just let me know in the comments. So stay tuned with the channel, because more brushes, more content, more techniques are going to be explored in this crazy world that is digital painting. Thanks a lot for being here, and as always I encourage you to subscribe if you are not subscribed yet, because that helps a lot the Krita community that can improve the Krita software, giving us a better tool for creation. If you have enjoyed this video and learned something important or interesting for you, let me know in the comments and share this video in your social media. That's the end of the video. See you next time. Bye.